MCAT 2017 Cram, Critical Analysis and Reasoning Skills, Flashcard Set 12.1, Political Attitudes. As you view the reading of this passage, you'll notice some highlighted snippets of text. What I want you to do is garner meaning from these selections in order to answer the foundations of comprehension questions that follow. These questions will require you to demonstrate that you know how to recognize an accurate summary of the central theme, interpret word choices made by the author, as well as it's going to test your ability to recognize an accurate paraphrase of particular statements made in the passage. All right, so good luck and happy reading. One study found that these effects seem to have been driven by traits attributed to the faces, specifically power, a composite of ratings of dominance and facial maturity, and warmth, a composite of ratings of likability and trustworthiness. Republican faces were perceived as more powerful than Democrats to the extent that a face was perceived as powerful, it was more likely to be categorized as Republican. On the other hand, the warmer a face was perceived, the more likely it was to be categorized as a Democrat. Other studies have also found relationships between facial traits and perceived political ideology. For example, one study found that conservative politicians in Finland were more attractive than candidates on the political left. In yet another study, politicians judged to be conservative were more attractive, intelligent looking, and of higher social class than those judged to be more liberal. These judgments can have electoral consequences. Surviving research. Well, I just want you to know that this definition is in brackets, isn't a part of the original text. It's just that oftentimes I find that students have trouble with the words that I will define via the bracketed, snippets. So that's just a little extra, okay? So although the extant research has provided important information about factors that may underlie categorizations of faces according to political party affiliation, it may be limited in some critical ways. These studies focus primarily on the target in isolation from the perceiver. It is important to note that this research draws from ideas based in an ecological theory of perception adapted to theories of ecological social perception. These theories argue that faces signal certain things to perceivers about what the target may afford. A target may appear, for instance, more or less trustworthy or dominant, which may lead the perceiver to trust or fear that person accordingly. However, it is likely that the accuracy of categorizing ambiguous targets is driven at least in part by the perceiver's identities, dispositions, or tastes. For example, it is known that perceptions of ambiguous group members may be influenced by perceivers' attitudes towards the groups or exposure to members of the group. One study found that heterosexual perceivers who had more experience with gay men were better at categorizing gay faces. Similarly, it is plausible that categorizations and trait descriptions of Democrat and Republican faces may differ based on the political ideology of the perceiver judge. There does exist some evidence that other perceiver identities and ideologies influence categorizations and judgments based on political affiliation. For instance, one study found that people categorize faces as political in-group or outgroup members largely as a function of likability. Another recent study found that perceiver gender influences ratings towards male and female politicians. Paragraph 3. Target political affiliation may interact with perceiver identity in another important way. In addition to accurate perceptions of political ideology, one study found that participants were more likely to classify faces as outgroup members than as in-group members. These findings are consistent with a more general in-group over-exclusion effect. The in-group over-exclusion effect is thought to be a result of motivated social cognitions related to social identity, such that people tend to be protective of the in-group. As a result of this protectiveness, perceivers may show a default bias toward categorizing others as outgroup members. This may be the case especially when groups are perpetually ambiguous. Not perpetually, perceptually ambiguous. For example, one group of scholars have observed an in-group over-exclusion effect for racially ambiguous targets, finding that Northern Italians, who had strongly identified as such, were more likely to exclude ambiguous targets that had a mix of Northern and Southern Italian features. To engage in over-exclusion. A member of an in-group who feels a strong sense of group identity. B, a member of an in-group who has more exposure to the out-group. C, a member of an out-group who is accustomed to the practice of exclusion. Or D, a member of an out-group who is jealous of the in-group. I'll give you a moment to think. Definitely press pause if you need to. If you're having difficulty answering, open up a second window to view the passage and search for the text support to select the correct answer choice. All right. So as mentioned earlier, this is a Foundations of Comprehension question, which is basically asking you to recognize an accurate paraphrase of the central theme and to interpret word choices made by the author. So in paragraph 3, the author writes, quote, the in-group over-exclusion effect is thought to be a result of motivated social cognitions related to social identity, such that people tend to be protective of the in-group. Okay, the paragraph then goes on to describe a study of Northern Italians who strongly identified as part of that group and were more likely to exclude other members of the same in-group, okay? Which is basically what answer choice A is saying. While the passage mentions experience as a factor, it is not mentioned in relation to the over-exclusion effect, which is kind of what answer choice B is saying, so answer choice B is wrong. And furthermore, being accustomed to over-exclusion, which is what answer choice C is saying, and being jealous, as mentioned in answer choice D, are never mentioned as factors, so we're just not going to go there with making those assumptions. Again, the correct answer is answer choice A, a member of an in-group who feels a strong sense of group identity. The target in isolation from the perceiver, as described in paragraph 2, can best be described as A, general disapproval, B, general support, C, balanced criticism, or D, condescending dismissal. Definitely press pause if you need to, and I'll give you a moment to think. If you're having difficulty answering, open up a second window to view the reading of the passage and search for the text support to correctly answer. All right. All right, so for our second Foundations of Comprehension question, we're going to take a look at paragraph 2, where the author explicitly expresses an opinion on the studies referred to as the studies that focused on, quote, the target in isolation from the perceiver. The author also writes, quote, although the extant research, the author says in paragraph 2, this is the first sentence, although the extant research has provided important information about factors that may underlie categorizations of faces according to political party affiliation, it may be limited in some critical ways, all right? Thus, the author is not completely dismissive of the studies and still recognizes the value to be found in them. So answer choice A, general disapproval and condescending dismissal expressed in answer choice D are not good descriptions of the author's attitude. While the author doesn't totally outright dismiss the studies, general support is also insufficient because it doesn't capture the author's view that the studies are somewhat limited. But suggesting that the author points out both the usefulness and limitations of the studies is a most befitting option. Another way you could say that is balanced criticism. That's why answer choice C is the correct answer choice.